next presentation is the determination of ideal perch space allowance for pullets, and it is presented by Adelle Herr, who is at the University of Saskatchewan. So Adelle, take it away.
You're just on mute, Adelle. It happens.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
You betcha. Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm glad you all can hear me now. As mentioned, I'm Adelle Herr, and I'm a master's student at the University of Saskatchewan. The objective of my project is to determine the ideal perch space to allow all pullets in a pen to perch synchronously through collecting data related to production, behavior, and physiological function. A little bit of background about my project. Currently, there's a lack of research on perch space for pullets, and as such, this topic has been identified as a research gap by Egg Farmers of Canada. Due to this, laying hen research will be used as a guide for this project. In 2018, Riddle et al. Conducted a study assessing the space required by 4 different strains of hens, 2 brown and 2 white, to perform specific behaviors. They measured the body width of each strain of hen and determined that all hens were wider at the widest point of the body than the current recommendation of 15 centimeters of perch space per bird. Additionally, there is evidence that perching is a behavioral need and that supplying perches to hens increases both bone mineral content and bone strength. At this time, my hypothesis is that pullets will need less than the current recommended perch space, as they have smaller bodies and lighter weights as compared to adult laying hens, and thus will require less space. Materials and methods. The small floor facility at the University of Saskatchewan's Poultry Center will be used for both trial repetitions, one of which occurred last summer from May to September, and one of which is currently underway and will be completed in September of this year. In order to determine the ideal perch space for standing and sitting pullets, 4 different perch treatments will be used. The first treatment is 6 centimeters of perch space per bird. The second is 9 centimeters of perch space per bird. The third is 12 centimeters of perch space per bird, and the fourth is 15 centimeters of perch space per bird. The pictures here represent how each perch fits in their respective pens, with the gray circles representing the feeders and the red and black circles representing drinkers. There will be 2 strains of pullets used, 1032 Lohmann LSL brown light pullets and 1032 Lohmann LSL light pullets will randomly be assigned to one of the 4 treatment groups each repetition. Each trial will have 2 pens per treatment per strain, and the pullets are reared under Lohmann guidelines and are housed at a commercial stocking density. Data collection, we will be collecting body weight, feed disappearance, and pullet width every 4 weeks and at 18 weeks of age. Common body lesions will be scored at 12 and 18 weeks of age. Behavior videos will be recorded every 3 weeks, from which pullet perch location and behavior will be collected using scan sampling. And as the large perches limit the ability to see the birds on the litter floor, only perch behavior will be evaluated. Failed landings and collisions will also be collected from these recordings using a continuous sampling method. We will also be assessing keel bone damage through palpation and dissection at 18 weeks of age, as well as bone strength at the end of the trial. Hetero to lymphocyte ratios will be determined at 12 and 18 weeks of age, and mortality data will be collected for the duration of each trial. The data for my first trial is currently being analyzed using SAS 9.4, and the second trial is underway and will be complete in September of 2022, which should give me a complete and full data set. Are there any questions?
All right, well, thank you for that presentation. Again, I invite our audience, if you have any questions, please add them to the question and answer box. So I'm curious if you are looking at any other parameters around the perch, or if that complicates things, height or what the perch is made out of, or anything like that.
So in my literature review, I did review some of that. So for example, we're using wood perches, which are a rougher surface than per se the metal or the pipe perches that are sometimes used. So the roughness and the smoothness of a perch is dependent, but I'm not looking at those parameters yet. I'm just looking at space because it's the first study that's been done in pullets and perch space, whereas there's been lots done in laying hens for those very specific qualities about the perch. So the height, the space, different heights for having one perch, but I'm not looking at those. I'm just looking at the space the pullets need.
Perfect. And so you, based on that literature, you've chosen the, you know, what is assumed to be the appropriate height for the strains?
I did not do the background for this project. I started when we got our first set of birds.
Right.
So I don't actually have an answer for why this specific height was chosen. Our perches are 52.1 centimeters tall. But I don't have an exact reason for why that was chosen.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I understand that. Oh, we have two questions coming into the question and answer box. So let me just start with that. To what extent do you think the configuration of the perches in your test pens affect your experiment? I'm assuming that they are not tiered all at the same elevation. Many free run systems in the industry are using tiered perches and cages.
Yeah, so with tiered perches, what we see is overnight, what they've found in a lot of the research is birds tend to like, especially hens, tend to like the highest perch possible. So at night, you're going to see them move up to the higher tiers. But with having one tier, because ours is just a flat single height at this time, having those different tiers, I don't know if it would affect the space necessary per bird. It would, per se, I guess it would have an impact on how much space you put at each tier. But overall, right now, I'm just kind of looking at how much space each bird needs. So the effect I think that would have is it would just change your location of where your birds sit and when they use it and what behaviors are performed at each tier.
Right, and so you'll be capturing some of that.
Yeah,
those
so
that you're taking.
yeah. So with my behavior videos, I'm looking at the locations on each perch. So I'm kind of seeing where they like to be, if they like to be closer to the wall, if they like to be in the middle, if they like to be farther to the other side. So those are kind of what I'm looking at. And then I'm also going to look at the behaviors performed on the perch. So kind of what do they do when during the day? How many do we see overnight? Do we see lots of behaviors done on the perch during the day? Just to kind of see if we need the space for those birds.
Do you think the social pecking order, if you will, the dominance dynamics might play a role in how they use that space or how much space they need?
To an extent, yes. I'm housing birds at a commercial stocking density. So I've got 129 birds per pen. So with having a larger group, they don't develop those social bonds quite as extensively. I think it will have an impact or could have an impact on the possible aggression from below the perch. But I don't know per se if it will have an effect on who uses the perch or how often it is used, more so just location and who gets like the best spots on the perch.
Perfect. Well, with that, I'm going to thank you for your presentation and we'll continue on with our program. Thanks so much.
Thank you.